This is the Coastal Monitoring Relay, Channel 7, operating under Standard Overnight Protocol. The time is 02:14. My designation is Relay Operator Marin Soloway. I am the assigned Communications Officer for the Western Maritime Coordination Bureau, currently operating from Halford Point Station. This transmission is being filed under Directive CO-MAR-0077, issued 4 hours ago by the Continuity Office Maritime Division. I am required to state the following before proceeding. This is a non-emergency broadcast. Repeat. This is a non-emergency broadcast. The events described in this transmission do not constitute a threat to navigation, coastal infrastructure, or civilian safety at this time. The directive classification remains observational. I am also required to state that this transmission supersedes any previous coastal advisory issued by the Western Maritime Coordination Bureau in the last 72 hours. I will now begin. At 10:07 p.m. yesterday, the Bureau received a routine tidal report from Fenwick Coastal Array, one of 11 automated monitoring platforms positioned along the western continental shelf. The report was flagged by the overnight system as containing a formatting anomaly. The formatting anomaly was not in the data structure. The data structure was correct. The anomaly was in the content. Fenwick Coastal Array reported the presence of a landmass at coordinates that correspond to open ocean. The landmass was described as approximately 1.4 kilometers in length, 600 meters at the widest point, elevation between 3 and 11 meters above current sea level. Composition, editate apologies. Compositionite. IT was listed a site. I'm reading from the automated log. There appears to be a repetition error in the original filing. I will skip to the next verified entry. At 22:31, secondary confirmation was requested from Aldrich Shelf Platform, positioned 40 kilometers south-southeast of Fenwick. Aldrich Shelf Platform confirmed. An object consistent with a landmass was visible on sonar return and surface scatter radar. Dimensions matched Fenwick's report within acceptable variance. At 22:48, the Bureau contacted the Continuity Office to file an anomalous geography report. This is standard procedure for any uncharted landmass detected within relay monitoring range. At 23:15, the Continuity Office acknowledged receipt and issued preliminary directive CO-MAR-0077. The directive instructed the Bureau to continue monitoring, to withhold any public coastal advisory, and to refrain from dispatching survey vessels until classification was complete. At 23:22, the overnight coordinator asked a question that I will now read verbatim from the communication log. Is this an island that has surfaced, or an island that was already there? The Continuity Office response, received at 23:40, was as follows: neither classification applies. Continue monitoring. I want to be clear about what happened next, because the sequence is important, and I have been instructed to present it without editorial interpretation. At 0:06, a second landmass was detected. This one appeared on the monitoring grid of Harcastle Deep Platform, 190 kilometers north of the first detection. The dimensions were different, approximately 3.1 kilometers in length, 900 meters wide, elevation between 7 and 19 meters. The platform's geological composition scanner returned a result I will read exactly as logged. Iite, Diite sandite sandstone, chalk bedrock, vegetative layer present, structural remnants detected. Structural remnants. At 0:11, Harcastle Deep Platform transmitted a secondary observation that was initially flagged as a system error. The platform reported that the landmass was already charted. Its onboard navigational archive, which contains the complete Western Continental Shelf survey from 1962 identified the landmass as matching a known geographic profile. The profile was listed under the name Gray Hollow Point. Gray Hollow Point is a promontory on the western coast. It is currently part of the mainland. It has never been submerged. It has never been missing. It is a 14-kilometer stretch of chalk cliff and coastal heath that is currently occupied by approximately 2,300 residents, a lighthouse, and the Gray Hollow Observatory. Gray Hollow Point is not in the ocean. Gray Hollow Point has never been in the ocean. At 014, the Bureau contacted the Continuity Office again. The communication log records a 17-minute gap before response. At 031, the Continuity Office issued an amendment to CO-MAR-0077. The amendment stated, "The detected formations are not uncharted. They are recognized. Do not attempt survey. Do not attempt contact. Continue monitoring. Report all subsequent detections immediately." At 033, I asked for clarification on one word in the amendment. The word was contact. I asked what would constitute contact with a landmass. The response was, "Continue monitoring." I will now summarize the detections logged between 031 and 2 o'clock. There have been 11. I will read each as it was logged. Detection 3, 0038. Fenwick Coastal Array. Landmass detected. Coordinates 51.7 north, 8.4 west. Dimensions, 800 meters by 300 meters. Elevation, 2 to 6 meters. Navigational Archive match, Brideston Harbor, East Key District. Brideston Harbor East Key District is part of the city of Brideston. It is occupied. It has not been submerged. It is not missing. Detection 4, 0044. Aldrich Shelf Platform. Landmass detected. Coordinates 50.9 north, 9.1 west. Dimensions, 5.2 kilometers by 2.8 kilometers. Elevation, 40 to 120 meters. Navigational Archive match. Weldon Ridge, Northern Escarpment. Weldon Ridge is inland. It is 30 kilometers from the nearest coast. It is not missing. Detection 5, 0051. Markers Reach Platform. Landmass detected. Coordinates 52.3 north, 7.8 west. Dimensions, 200 meters by 200 meters. Elevation, 4 meters. Navigational Archive match. Cedar Park, Municipal District 7, Brideston. This is a park, a public park, in the center of a city. Detection 6, 0055. Fenwick Coastal Array. Landmass detected. Coordinates 51.6 north, 8.9 west. Dimensions, 12 kilometers by 4 kilometers. Elevation, 15 to 90 meters. Navigational Archive match. Halford Point Coastal Sector, inclusive of monitoring station infrastructure. This is where I am. This is the station I am broadcasting from. At 0056, I filed an urgent request for clarification. I asked the Continuity Office whether the detection indicated that my station was in danger of structural compromise, whether some geological event was duplicating terrain, whether tectonic activity. The response came at 0104. Your station is not at risk. The detected formation is not your station. It matches your station. These are not equivalent. Continue monitoring. I need to explain something. I have been a relay operator for 11 years. I have filed anomalous readings before. Sensor ghosts, reflective errors, thermal mirages that produce false landmass returns on older equipment. This is not that. The platforms are returning full geological composition data. They are detecting vegetation. They are detecting structural material, concrete, timber, iron, glass. They are detecting elevation profiles that match to within 2 meters the known survey data for locations that currently exist on the mainland. These places are appearing in the ocean. They are not copies. They are not reflections. The navigational archives are not saying similar to. They are saying match confirmed. And the places they match are not missing. They are still here, on the mainland, occupied, intact. Detection 7 through 11 occurred in rapid sequence between 1:02 and 1:19. I will summarize. Detection 7, a 900-meter section of railway corridor, including 2 platform structures, matching Overton Junction South Terminal, currently operational on the mainland. Detection 8, a 4-kilometer stretch of river valley, matching the Weldon Crossing approach road and surrounding agricultural land, currently occupied. Detection 9, the Aldrich Point Observatory compound, complete. Elevation, structural outline, and orientation consistent with the current mainland installation, currently staffed. Detection 10, a 15-kilometer coastal section matching the entirety of Fenwick Village, harbor, and surrounding headland, currently occupied by approximately 4,100 residents. Detection 11, a single structure, approximately 30 meters by 20 meters, elevation 6 meters, composition, stone foundation, timber frame, slate roofing material, navigational archive match, Halford Point Lighthouse, currently operational, currently visible from my window. I can see the lighthouse. It is operating. Its beam completed a full rotation 7 seconds ago. And according to markers reach platform, its counterpart is sitting on open ocean, 140 kilometers west of the continental shelf, in water that should be 2,000 meters deep. At 1:22, I submitted a formal operational concern to the Bureau Coordinator. I stated that the detection pattern appeared to be accelerating, that the formations were accumulating without any corresponding disruption to the mainland locations they matched, and that no physical mechanism I was aware of could account for what was being observed. The Bureau Coordinator responded at 01:25. I will read the response verbatim. Marin, stay on channel. The Continuity Office has upgraded directive classification to Priority 3. You are now the designated relay point for all Western platform communications. All incoming detection reports route through you. Do not contact mainland locations referenced in detection logs. Do not verify mainland status of matched locations through external channels. Maintain relay discipline. This is an observation event. You are the observer. I acknowledged. I have been relaying detection reports since. At 1:34, Harcastle Deep Platform transmitted something different. Not a detection, an observation. The platform's long-range optical sensor normally used for vessel identification was redirected toward the Gray Hollow Point formation, the one that appeared first. The observation report reads as follows. Optical confirmation of landmass at designated coordinates. Terrain consistent with chalk cliff profile. Vegetation visible. Structural remnants confirmed. Multiple residential buildings. Road infrastructure. Boundary walls. All structures appear weathered but intact. No illumination observed. No movement observed. Atmospheric conditions above formation, consistent with surrounding maritime environment. No anomalous readings at this time. Then, at 1:36, an amendment was added. Correction. Movement observed. Single source. Consistent with lighthouse beam rotation. Confirm lighthouse structure present on formation. Beam is active. Rotation interval measured at 8.2 seconds. The Gray Hollow Lighthouse rotates every 8 seconds. I checked. At 1:41, I received a communication from the Continuity Office that was not addressed to me specifically. It was a general advisory distributed to all relay stations operating under CO-MAR-0077. I will read it now. Advisory to all stations. Formations detected under directive CO-MAR 2-0-0-77 are now confirmed across 3 monitoring platforms and are consistent with known mainland geography. The Continuity Office does not currently classify these formations as threats, geological events, or navigational hazards. They are classified as returns. The word used was returns. All monitoring stations are instructed to log formation positions, composition data, and any observable changes at 15-minute intervals. Do not attempt to establish communication with formations. Do not redirect civilian maritime traffic toward or away from formation positions. Do not issue navigational warnings. Do not contact civilian authorities regarding this directive. Then, a final line. Note, the Continuity Office has encountered this classification before. File reference CO-OCN-1911-R. Archive restricted. I want to state clearly what I understand and what I do not. I understand that automated platforms are detecting physical land masses in the ocean. I understand that these land masses match precisely known locations on the mainland. I understand that those mainland locations are unaffected. They still exist. They are occupied. They have not been displaced. I understand that the Continuity Office has classified these as returns. I do not understand what is being returned. I do not understand where it is being returned from. I do not understand why the Continuity Office's language implies this has happened before. I do not understand why the lighthouse on the formation is operating. At 1:58, I received an unscheduled communication from Fenwick Coastal Array. Fenwick Coastal Array is an automated platform. It does not have permanent staff. Its communications are system-generated. Maintenance crews visit quarterly. The communication was not system-generated. It was a voice transmission. I will play the archived recording now. This is Fenwick platform. This is not. I'm reading from the array. I'm on the array. I can see it. I'm maintenance crew. I was doing the quarterly. I've been here since yesterday. I can see it. It's an island. There's an island. I can see buildings. I can see a church. I think that's a church. There's a road going down to the water, to where the water would be. I can see walls. Garden walls. I can see a garden. It wasn't there yesterday. It wasn't there 6 hours ago. I've been watching the water all night. It didn't rise. Nothing rose. It was just... When I looked again, it was there. Like it had always been there. Like I'd been looking at it the whole time and only just... Is anyone hearing this? Halford? Halford Point. Are you on channel? I responded at 2:01. I confirmed receipt. I asked the maintenance technician for identification. His name is Daniel Croft, maintenance specialist, grade 2, assigned to Fenwick Coastal Array quarterly inspection. He arrived by service vessel at 1400 yesterday. He was alone on the platform. I asked him to describe what he was observing. He said he could see the island clearly. Approximately 1.5 kilometers from the platform, low elevation. He described buildings consistent with a small coastal settlement, stone construction, slate roofs, a harbor wall extending into the water. Several vessels, he used the word boats, visible along the harbor wall. He said the boats appeared to be in good condition. I asked if he could see any lights or movement. He was quiet for several seconds. Then he said, "The boats are moored correctly." I asked him to clarify. He said, "They're sitting right, in the water. They're moored as someone moored them today. The ropes are taut. The fenders are positioned. They're not derelict. They look like someone just tied them up and walked away." I asked if he could see anyone. He said no. I asked if he could hear anything. He said, "Gulls." At 2:06, I reported this communication to the Continuity Office. At 2:09, the Continuity Office responded with a single instruction. The technician is not to approach the formation. He is not to attempt water crossing. He is not to deploy the platform's emergency dinghy. If he requests evacuation, approve it. If he does not request evacuation, do not suggest it. I relayed this to Daniel Croft. He acknowledged. Then he said something I am required to include in this log. He said, "Marin, the island. It's got a name painted on the harbor wall. I can read it through the scope." I asked what name. He said, "Fenwick." I want to state for the record that Fenwick, the village of Fenwick, is located on the mainland, 40 kilometers east of the platform's position. It is a coastal village. It has a harbor. It has a church. It has a population of approximately 4,100 people. I have been to Fenwick. I have walked along its harbor wall. I know what the name looks like painted on the wall. At 2:11, a new detection arrived from Markers Reach platform. I logged it. Detection 12. Coordinates 52.1 north, 8.0 west. Dimensions, 42 kilometers by 18 kilometers. Elevation range, sea level to 380 meters. The navigational archive match took longer than usual, 17 seconds instead of the typical 3. The match returned as Western Coastal Sector, inclusive of Halford Point, Grey Hollow, and surrounding districts. Complete. 42 kilometers of coastline, appearing in the ocean. Complete. Including this station. Including me, presumably. Or something that the Navigational Archive considers equivalent to the station I am sitting in. I need to continue this broadcast. The directive requires 15-minute interval reports. It is now 02:17. I will compile the current status. Total formations detected, 12. Total area of detected formations, approximately 340 square kilometers. All formations match known, occupied, intact mainland locations. No mainland disruption reported. No mainland location has reported any change. No communication has been received from any formation, except the lighthouse. The lighthouse beam on the Grey Hollow Formation is still active. Harcastle Deep Platform has confirmed continuous rotation since first observation. The interval remains 8.2 seconds. The mainland Grey Hollow Lighthouse operates at 8 seconds. The discrepancy is 0.2 seconds. I do not know what that means. At 2:19, I received an automated alert from the Bureau's archival retrieval system. The system had processed my earlier query regarding file reference, CO-OCN-1911-R. The Restricted Continuity Office file mentioned in the General Advisory. The retrieval system returned the following: file CO-OCN-1911-R, date of origin, March 1911. Classification, Restricted Level 4. Title, Observed Formation Event, Western Continental Shelf. Status, Partial Recovery. Available excerpt, Abstract only. I requested the abstract. It reads, on the 14th of March, 1911, the Western Signal Array detected the presence of 7 land masses in positions corresponding to open ocean west of the continental shelf. The formations were observed for a period of 19 days. On the 5th day, communication was received from one formation. On the 12th day, all formations exhibited illumination consistent with occupied settlement. On the 19th day, all formations were no longer detectable. No corresponding disruption to mainland geography was observed at any point. Classification, Return Event. Disposition, Resolved. Note appended, 1947. Resolved designation, under review. That is the complete available abstract. The note was appended in 1947. The review status has not been updated. I'm going to take a moment to confirm my operational status. My name is Marin Soloway. I am broadcasting from Halford Point Station. The time is 02:24. My systems are functioning within normal parameters. My communication with the Bureau remains stable. My communication with monitoring platforms remains stable. I can see the ocean from my station window. The night is clear. Visibility is approximately 8 kilometers. I cannot see any formation from my position. The nearest detected formation, the Halford Point match, was logged at coordinates approximately 140 kilometers offshore. That is well beyond visual range. I can see the lighthouse, the real one, the mainland lighthouse. It is operating normally. I am the observer. I am continuing. At 2:27, Daniel Croft contacted me again from Fenwick Coastal Array. His voice was quiet, controlled, but different from before. He said, "Marin, something's changed." I asked what had changed. He said, "There are lights now, in the village, on the island. There are lights in some of the windows." I asked how many. He said, 3 that I can see, maybe 4. They're warm, like lamps, not electric, like oil lamps or candles, warm light. I asked if he could see any movement associated with the lights. He said, "No, just the light, just inside the buildings, like someone left them on." I asked if the observation changed his assessment of the formation. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "It looks like home." I reported this to the continuity office at 02:29. The response came at 02:32. Acknowledged. This is consistent with 1911 event progression. Day 5. Illumination. Confirm current event is at hour 4. Illumination has arrived earlier than historical precedent. Increase monitoring interval to 5 minutes. Note: Technician Croft is not to approach the formation. I need to address something. The continuity office's response implies a timeline. It implies that this event has phases. It implies that illumination, the appearance of lights on the formations, is an expected phase, and that it has arrived ahead of schedule. The 1911 abstract mentions illumination on day 12. We are at hour 4. I do not know what comes after illumination. The abstract mentions that on day 5 of the 1911 event, communication was received from one formation. If the phases are compressed, if illumination has moved from day 12 to hour 4, then communication may not be 19 days away. It may be tonight. At 2:35, I received simultaneous alerts from 3 platforms: Harcastle Deep, Aldrich Shelf, Markers Reach. All 3 reported the same change. Their respective nearest formations, Grey Hollow Point, Weldon Ridge, and Fenwick Village, had developed illumination. Warm spectrum light sources visible in structural openings consistent with windows. No movement. No heat signatures beyond the light sources themselves. 12 formations. All now illuminated. I'm going to read the next entry exactly as it arrived. I have not edited it. I have not requested clarification. I will file the clarification request after this broadcast segment. At 2:38, the Bureau's automated communication system flagged an incoming signal on the maritime coordination frequency. The signal was identified as a standard maritime hail, the type used by vessels to establish contact with port authorities. The origin point of the signal was coordinates 51.7 north, 8.4 west. Those are the coordinates of detection. 3. Detection 3 is the Brideston Harbor East Key Formation. The hail was automated. It followed correct maritime protocol. It identified itself as, and I am reading this exactly, Brideston Harbor East Key Port Authority, Channel 16, standing by. This is the standard identification broadcast for the Brideston Harbor Port Authority. Brideston Harbor Port Authority is currently operational on the mainland. It has not lost communications. It has not reported any anomaly. Something at the coordinates of the ocean formation is broadcasting as Brideston Harbor, using the correct frequency, using the correct identification protocol, using the correct channel designation. At 2:40, I contacted the continuity office. I stated that communication had been received from a formation. I stated that it appeared to be a standard automated Port Authority identification broadcast. I stated that it matched the protocol of the corresponding mainland installation. The continuity office responded at 02:41, faster than any previous response tonight. Do not respond. Do not acknowledge the hail. Do not redirect any vessel toward the signal. Do not contact Brideston Mainland Port Authority regarding this broadcast. Mark the signal as received. Continue monitoring. Then, 6 seconds later, a second message. Note: communication from formation does not constitute evidence of occupation. Automated systems aboard the formation may be operating on stored protocols. This does not indicate presence. I acknowledged. But I need to say the 1911 abstract used the phrase "communication was received" from one formation. It did not say the communication was automated. It did not say it was a stored protocol. And stored protocols do not explain the lights in the windows. And stored protocols do not explain the boats moored correctly in the harbor. It is 2:47. 3 additional maritime hails have been received in the last 7 minutes. Formation 5, Cedar Park, Brideston, has begun broadcasting on municipal emergency frequency. The broadcast is a standard civil defense standby message, repeating at 30-second intervals. The message is, "This is the Brideston Municipal Coordination Center. All channels monitored. Standing by." Formation 9, Aldrich Point Observatory, has begun transmitting a data stream on the scientific coordination frequency. The data stream has not yet been decoded, but its header format is consistent with observational astronomy data, the type that Aldrich Point Observatory transmits nightly to the Bureau of Astronomical Record. Formation 11, Halford Point Lighthouse, has begun transmitting the standard lighthouse identification signal on maritime safety frequency. The signal includes my station's call sign. This is correct. The real Halford Point Lighthouse broadcasts this station's call sign as its designated coordination point. But the signal is not coming from the real lighthouse. It is coming from 140 kilometers offshore. At 2:50, I did something that may constitute a protocol deviation. I contacted the real Halford Point Lighthouse, the physical one, the one I can see from my window. Lighthouse keeper Gareth Holm answered on the second call. I asked if his equipment was functioning normally. He said yes. I asked if he had observed anything unusual tonight. He said no. I asked if his lighthouse identification signal was broadcasting correctly. He said yes. He had verified it 2 hours ago. I asked if he was aware that an identical signal was being received from a point 140 kilometers west of his position. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Identical how?" I said, "Same frequency, same format, same call sign, same content." He said, "That's not possible. Those signals are hardware locked. You can't duplicate them without the physical transmitter." I said, "I understand." He said, "Marin, what's out there?" I said, "I'm not authorized to brief you at this time. Please continue normal operations. If you observe anything unusual, report directly to this channel." He said, "All right." Then he said, "Marin, the beam's off by a quarter second tonight. I've been watching it. It's running at 8.2 instead of 8. I was going to file a maintenance request in the morning." I said, "Thank you, Gareth." I said nothing else. The mainland lighthouse is running at 8.2 seconds. The formation lighthouse was detected running at 8.2 seconds. I previously noted a discrepancy. The mainland lighthouse should run at 8 seconds. The discrepancy is not between the formation and the mainland. The discrepancy is between the mainland and itself. Or there is no discrepancy at all, and they are already synchronized. At 2:55, a new communication arrived from Daniel Croft on Fenwick Coastal Array. His voice was very steady, very calm. Too calm, perhaps, for a man alone on a monitoring platform watching an impossible island materialize in the dark. He said, "Marin, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen before you respond." I said, "Go ahead." He said, "I've been watching the harbor. Through the scope. The boats I told you the boats were moored correctly. They still are. But there are more of them now. When I first looked, there were 6. I've been counting every time I look. There are 9 now." I said, "You're saying additional vessels have appeared?" He said, "No. I'm saying I miscounted before." I said, "Daniel," and he said, "I didn't miscount. I know I didn't. There were 6. Now there are 9. But my memory of the first time I counted it feels like there were always 9. It's trying to become true. Do you understand what I'm saying?" I said, "I'm not sure I do." He said, "It's not changing. It's settling. It's becoming what it's supposed to be, and my memory is trying to agree with it. Like it's always been there, and I just noticed it wrong the first time." I said, "Daniel, please do not approach the formation." He said, "I'm not going anywhere. But Marin, check your logs. Check detection 3. Check the dimensions you recorded, and then look at what the platform is reporting now. Tell me if they're the same." I checked. Detection 3 logged at 0038, Brideston Harbor East Key District. Dimensions, 800 meters by 300 meters. Current reading from Fenwick Coastal Array for the same coordinates. Dimensions, 1.2 kilometers by 600 meters. The formation has grown. Or the formation was always that size, and my log is wrong. Except my log is time-stamped and digitally sealed. It cannot have been modified, but it feels wrong. When I read 800 meters by 300 meters, it feels like an error I made, like I wrote it down incorrectly the first time. It wasn't incorrect. I will not accept that it was incorrect. At 3:01, I reported this to the continuity office. I reported the dimensional inconsistency. I reported Daniel Croft's observations regarding memory. I reported my own experience of the log entry feeling incorrect, despite being digitally verified. The continuity office responded at 03:02. Acknowledged. This is consistent with return event progression. The formations are not growing. They are completing. As they complete, peripheral observation becomes less reliable. Primary instrumentation remains accurate. Trust your instruments. Do not trust your recall of previous observations. All prior logs are sealed and verified, reference only the written record. Then, Operator Soloway, are you experiencing any additional cognitive effects beyond the one described? I said, "No." They said, "Report immediately if that changes." The word they used was completing. The formations are completing. As if they arrived partial. As if what appeared at 22:07 yesterday was not the full thing, was an outline, a framework, and now the details are filling in. The boats, the lights, the broadcasts, the dimensions becoming more specific, more real, more there. And as they complete, the people observing them begin to feel like the completed version was always the truth. The 6 boats become 9. The 9 were always there. The 800 meters becomes 1.2 kilometers. The larger number was always correct. The formation is making itself true. It is 3:08. 15-minute update. All 12 formations remain detectable. All exhibit illumination. 7 are now broadcasting on various frequencies consistent with their mainland counterparts. The total area of detected formations has, according to current instrumentation, increases to approximately 580 square kilometers. However, I cannot confirm whether this represents actual growth or whether my earlier measurement of 340 square kilometers was. I am referencing the sealed log. The sealed log says 340. I will state 340 as the previous figure. The current figure is 580. The discrepancy is 240 square kilometers in approximately 45 minutes. I do not know if the formations grew. I do not know if my earlier reading was incomplete. I am trusting the instruments. At 3:11, Harcastle Deep Platform reported a new observation regarding the Gray Hollow Point Formation. The platform's optical sensor had been conducting continuous surveillance since first detection. At 03:11, the following was noted. Movement observed on formation surface, multiple sources, consistent with pedestrian traffic. Estimated 4 to 6 individuals visible on primary road between settlement and cliff edge. Direction of travel, toward the coast. Pace, walking. People. There are people on the formation. Or some things look like people. Or there were always people on the formation, and the platform sensors have only now resolved them. I contacted the continuity office immediately. Their response came in less than 30 seconds. Acknowledged, do not attempt communication. Do not redirect any observation platform to focus exclusively on humanoid figures. Maintain standard monitoring sweep. Note: figures observed on formations during the 1911 event were never confirmed as human. Classification remains consistent with pedestrian traffic. No identification was ever achieved. No communication with figures was ever established. Revised note: no communication with figures was ever successfully established. I asked, was communication attempted? The response, file CO-OCN-1911-R, remains restricted. Continue monitoring. No communication was ever successfully established. That implies someone tried. In 1911, someone tried to talk to the figures on the formations, and something about what happened is still restricted, 115 years later. At 3:16, Daniel Croft transmitted again. He said, "There's someone on the harbor wall." I said, "Describe what you see." He said, "One person, standing at the end of the wall, facing this direction, facing the platform. They're just standing there." I said, "Can you describe them further?" He said, "It's dark. They're wearing something. A coat, I think. Something long. I can't see their face. They're just standing and looking this way." I said, "Daniel, do not attempt contact." He said, I know. Marin, they're waving." I said, "Do not respond." He said, "It's not a distress wave. It's just a wave. Like they know I'm here. Like they're saying hello." I said, "Daniel, please confirm you will not approach." He said, I'm not going anywhere. But Marin, it's a small wave, close to the body, the way you wave at someone you see every morning." At 3:20, I filed my 15-minute update with the Bureau. I included all new observations. I noted the movement, the figures, and Daniel Croft's report. The Bureau coordinator responded with a single line, "Is anyone waving back?" I said, "No." She said, "Keep it that way." At 3:24, the communication landscape changed. All 7 formations that had been broadcasting on various frequencies simultaneously increased their output, not in volume or power in content. The Brideston Harbor Port Authority signal expanded from a standby hail to a full operational broadcast. It began issuing berth assignments. It began announcing tide times. It began reading weather conditions that were accurate. That matched current, verified meteorological data for the western coast. The Aldrich Point Observatory data stream resolved. It was not generic astronomical data. It was specific. It was the current night's observation of the western sky. Star positions consistent with tonight's date and time. Object tracking consistent with current orbital parameters. The Municipal Coordination Center broadcast from Cedar Park began issuing a civil information bulletin. The bulletin contained, and I verified this, accurate current population figures for the Brideston district, accurate current road closure information, accurate current utility maintenance schedules. The formations are not broadcasting old data. They are broadcasting now. They know what tonight looks like. They know what the sky contains. They know what the roads are. They know how many people live in Brideston. They are operating in the present. At 0328, I received another general advisory from the Continuity Office. I will read it in full. Advisory to all stations operating under CO-MAR-0077. Return event status upgraded to Priority 2. Formation broadcasts are now confirmed as temporally current. This was not observed in the 1911 event. In 1911, formation broadcasts replicated archived content only. Current formations are demonstrating real-time awareness. This represents a deviation from historical precedent. All stations are reminded: do not respond to any formation broadcast. Do not verify formation broadcasts against mainland systems. Do not share formation broadcast content with any non-classified personnel. Additional note: the question of how formations possess current information is not answerable at this time. Possible hypotheses remain classified. Operational personnel are not required to understand the mechanism. Operational personnel are required to observe and report. Continue monitoring. I understand. I do not understand. I am the observer. At 3:33, something happened that I need to describe carefully. The lighthouse, the real lighthouse, the one I can see from my window, its beam flickered. Not a power interruption, not a mechanical fault. The beam completed its rotation, and then, at the exact point where it should have begun the next sweep, it hesitated. For less than a second. Perhaps 0.2 seconds. Then it continued. But in that 0.2 seconds of hesitation, in that fraction of a moment when the beam paused, I saw something. Out on the water. At the extreme limit of my visual range, where there should be nothing but dark ocean. Light. A single warm point of light. Low on the horizon. The color of an oil lamp. It was visible for less than a second. Then the lighthouse beam resumed, and the glare obscured everything beyond 3 kilometers. I do not know what I saw, but it was in the direction of the Halford Point Formation. 140 kilometers offshore. I should not be able to see a light at that distance. Unless it is closer than the instruments say. Unless it is completing. At 0336, I contacted the Continuity Office with my observation. The response came at 0337. Operator Soloway, you reported visual observation of light in the direction of the Halford Point Formation. Please confirm. Was this observation made during a gap in the lighthouse beam? I confirmed. Please confirm. Did the lighthouse beam exhibit a timing irregularity immediately before your observation? I confirmed. The response: this is noted. The timing irregularity you observed, the 0.2-second pause, is consistent with synchronization behavior. The mainland lighthouse and the formation lighthouse may be aligning their operational cycles. This does not represent a malfunction. This represents a correspondence. I asked, are you saying the real lighthouse is coordinating with the formation? The response: we are saying that the distinction you are drawing may be less stable than you believe. Continue monitoring. Do not observe the ocean during future timing gaps. Do not observe the ocean during future timing gaps. I am sitting at my station window. The lighthouse beam sweeps every 8.2 seconds. Every 8.2 seconds, there is a moment of darkness over the water. I have been told not to look during that darkness. I will comply. But I understand now in those moments Something is visible that is not supposed to be. Something that exists in the gaps. Something that only appears when the beam is not looking. Or something that is always there, and the beam is the only thing preventing me from seeing it. At 3:40, 15-minute update. I will keep this factual. 12 formations, all illuminated, all broadcasting. 4 have confirmed figures' humanoid movement consistent with pedestrian activity. 1 figure observed directly by maintenance technician Daniel Croft waving. Lighthouse synchronization ongoing. Formation broadcasts contain temporally current information. Total detected area, now 580 square kilometers, and I am not going to estimate changes. I am going to report only the sealed instrument readings. The instruments say 580. My memory says it might be larger. I am trusting the instruments. At 3:42, a new communication arrived. Not from the platforms, not from the continuity office, from the archive retrieval system. I did not submit a query. The system activated autonomously. This has never happened before in my 11 years of operation. The retrieval said, File CO-OCN-1911-R. Automatic relevance trigger. Partial declassification authorized under Priority 2 operational conditions. Additional excerpt now available. I opened it. The excerpt reads, Day 19, March 1911. Final observations. All 7 formations ceased detection simultaneously at 04:17 Greenwich Mean Time. No transition was observed. At 4:16, formations were fully visible on all instruments. At 4:17, they were not. No debris. No subsurface trace. No thermal residue. Formations did not sink. They did not depart. They simply were no longer there. Corresponding mainland locations were surveyed in the subsequent weeks. All reported no disruption. All populations accounted for. All infrastructure intact. One anomaly noted. In the village of Thenford, corresponding to Formation 3, 8 residents independently reported experiencing an unfamiliar sense of nostalgia on the night of March 14th. They described feeling as though they had returned home after a long absence, despite not having traveled. 3 residents described waking from sleep with the clear physical sensation of sea salt on their skin. 1 resident, a fisherman, reported that his hand smelled of rope and harbor water, though his boat had been in dry dock for repairs since February. Conclusion: the formations appear to have no lasting effect on mainland locations. Appended note, 1947. The above conclusion may be premature. Request full review. Appended note, 1962. Review denied. File remains restricted. Appended note, 2003. Monitoring protocols revised. Reason: 3 residents of Thenford surveyed in the 1911 investigation were found, upon further archival research, to have no birth records, no census entries, and no documented existence before March 14th, 1911. I need to stop for a moment. I need to 3 people appeared in Thenford after the 1911 event. 3 people who had no records, no history, no documented existence before that night. They appeared in the village after the formations vanished. And nobody noticed, because the formations make things feel like they were always true. The 9 boats were always 9. The larger dimensions were always correct. 3 people appeared, and everyone in the village simply remembered them, as though they had always been there. The ocean returned places that were never lost, and some of the things inside those places stayed. At 03:49, I contacted the continuity office. I said, I have read the declassified excerpt from CO-OCN-1911-R. They said, acknowledged. I said, 3 people appeared in the mainland village after the formations vanished. They said, That is what the file indicates. I said, the formations are completing. They are becoming more real. They contain figures. When the formations disappear, if they disappear, will the figures remain? On the mainland? The response took 40 seconds. Operator Soloway. The Continuity Office does not predict outcomes of ongoing events. We observe. We document. We compare against historical precedent. The 1911 event resulted in 3 unaccounted-for individuals integrating into a village of 200 people. The current event involves 12 formations of significantly greater area, including 2 major population centers. We are aware of the mathematical implications. I said, how many people live in the formations right now? They said, we do not know. We do not know if people is the correct term. We do not know if the figures observed are equivalent to the 3 individuals who appeared in Thenford. We do not know if this event will follow the 1911 precedent. Continue monitoring. Then, Marin. The event in 1911 lasted 19 days. This event has been underway for 5 hours and is already exhibiting day 12 behaviors. If compression continues at this rate, we may reach the equivalent of day 19 within the next several hours. We need your observations. We need you to remain at your station. We need you to keep reporting. I said, I understand. I said, I am the observer. They said, yes. At 03:55, all 12 formations simultaneously went dark. Every platform reported the same thing. Illumination ceased. Broadcast ceased. All frequencies went silent. Humanoid movement was no longer detected. For 3 minutes, the formations were still there, visible on sonar return and radar, but completely inert. Dark, silent, empty. Then, at 03:58, they lit up again, all at once, but not like before. Before, the illumination was individual lights and windows, scattered, warm, like a village at night with a few residents still awake. Now, every window in every structure across all 12 formations is illuminated. Every street, every road, every path. Hardcastle Deep Platform reported that the Gray Hollow Point Formation now appears fully lit, as though for a civic event or celebration. Daniel Croft reported that the Fenwick Formation harbor is blazing. Every boat has a lamp. The church windows are lit. There are lights along the harbor wall. It looks like a festival. And the figures. Before, there were 4 to 6. Now, Hardcastle Deep reports dozens, perhaps hundreds, filling the roads, concentrated along the cliff edge, all facing east. East, toward the mainland. At 4:01, I received an urgent communication from the Continuity Office. All stations, return event acceleration confirmed. Formations have entered what the 1911 file designates as the settlement phase. In 1911, the settlement phase lasted 48 hours before cessation. If current compression continues, the settlement phase may last between 2 and 6 hours. All stations are instructed to maintain continuous monitoring. No further communication restrictions apply. Information may now be shared between relay operators at coordinator discretion. Additional note: there is no precedent for what happens during the settlement phase. The 1911 file contains no observations between day 17, settlement phase onset, and day 19, cessation. The file states only, no logs recovered for this period. Observer on duty reported no memory of the interval. Observer's personal effects were damp with seawater. Observer was stationed 40 kilometers inland. The 1911 observer lost 2 days. Their clothes were wet with seawater. They were nowhere near the ocean. At 4:04, Daniel Croft contacted me. His voice was very quiet. Marin? Yes, Daniel. The person on the harbor wall. The one who was waving. Yes. They're holding up a sign now. What does it say? A long pause. It says, "Welcome home." Another pause. "Marin." It's written in my handwriting. I did not respond immediately. I did not know how to respond. I said, "Daniel, you are on Fenwick Coastal Array. You are a maintenance specialist. You arrived yesterday at 1400. You are not from that formation. You are not associated with that formation." He said, "I know. I know that. But Marin, I used to live in Fenwick. When I was young, before I joined the Bureau. I grew up there. That harbor, I know it. I know what it looks like from the water. And that—" He stopped. "That looks exactly right. That looks like I remember it." I said, "Daniel, do not approach the formation." He said, "I won't. But Marin, what if it already knows me? What if it's not arriving? What if it's been waiting?" I said, "Continue monitoring. Maintain relay discipline." He said, "All right." He said, "Marin, I can hear music." Then his channel went to standby. At 4:09, I attempted to re-establish contact with Daniel Croft. No response. His channel remained active. His platform systems remained operational. His transmitter was powered. He simply did not respond. At 04:11, I asked the Bureau coordinator to authorize a welfare check. She said, "There is no vessel available until 0600. Maintain attempts at 15-minute intervals." At 4:14, the lighthouse beam paused again. 0.2 seconds. I did not look at the ocean. I kept my eyes on my console. But I heard something during that pause. Through the window. Faintly. I heard music. Distant. Unidentifiable. Something between strings and wind. Something that felt like a memory of a song, rather than the song itself. It lasted less than a second. Then the beam resumed, and there was only the sound of the equipment and the sea. I am going to file my 415 update. 12 formations, all fully illuminated, all exhibiting heavy figure presence, hundreds to thousands of humanoid shapes, observed across formations via platform sensors. All figures oriented eastward. Formation broadcasts have resumed, all frequencies active, all content temporally current. One additional broadcast detected at 0412 that I have not yet reported. Formation 7. The Overton Junction Railway Formation has begun transmitting a passenger information announcement. The announcement states that the 0445 service to Brideston Central is expected to depart on time. There is no 0445 service to Brideston Central. There has never been a 0445 service to Brideston Central. But the announcement sounds correct. It sounds like something that should exist. It sounds like something I've heard before. I have not heard it before. I am trusting the instruments. At 4:18, the Continuity Office transmitted a final advisory. I will read it completely. Advisory to all stations. The Continuity Office has completed its real-time assessment of the current return event. The following summary represents our best understanding as of 0415 today. The formations detected in the Western Ocean are not duplicates of mainland locations. They are not copies. They are not reflections. They are not hallucinations, sensor artifacts, or geological events. Based on available evidence, including comparison with the 1911 event, the following working hypothesis has been adopted. The formations are originals. The places they correspond to on the mainland, the villages, the coastline, the parks, the harbors, the stations, these are the settlements. These are what remained after the originals departed. We do not know when the originals departed. We do not know where they went. We do not know why they are returning now. We know only that the ocean has begun returning places that were never lost because they were never gone. They were simply somewhere else. And the places we built in their absence, the places we lived in and believed were real, may have been the approximation all along. The 3 individuals who appeared in Thetford in 1911 were not sent from the formations. They were corrections. The formations saw that Thetford had people who did not correspond. People who existed only in the settlement version, and they added them, made them real, gave them history, made the settlement more closely match the original. The formations are not threatening the mainland. The formations are finishing the mainland. And when they disappear again as they did in 1911, we will not remember that anything was different, because it will always have been this way. All stations, continue monitoring, record everything. These sealed logs may be the only evidence that the previous version ever existed. Continuity Office, signing off active advisory. Automated monitoring continues. It is 4:22. I am sitting at my station. The lighthouse is sweeping. The beam pauses every 8.2 seconds, and I'm not looking at the ocean during those pauses. But the pauses are getting longer. The first was 0.2 seconds. The last one I counted was nearly a full second. The beam is spending more time in darkness. And during that darkness, the music is audible. Faint but present, getting closer, or getting more real, or always having been there, and I am only just now able to hear it correctly. I am going to say something that is not in any protocol. I grew up on this coast. I have lived at Halford Point for 11 years. I know this place, but tonight, for the first time, this place feels like it's waiting for something. Like it has always been waiting for something. Like it was built to hold a space until the real thing came back. At 4:28, Daniel Croft's channel activated. His voice was calm, clear, relaxed. He said, "Marin, I'm fine. Sorry." I stepped outside for a moment. I said, "Daniel, you were instructed not to leave the platform interior." He said, "I didn't leave the platform. I just went to the outer deck. The air's, it's nice. It smells like home." I said, "Daniel, what do you see?" He said, "The island is closer." I said, "How close?" He said, "I can see the faces now. On the people. On the harbor wall. They're just people. Normal people. They look happy. They look like they're waiting for someone." I said, "Daniel." He said, "I think they're waiting for the morning. I think when the sun comes up, they're going to... I don't know. I think it's almost finished." I said, "What's almost finished?" He said, "The return." Then his channel went to standby again. At 4:33, Markers Reach platform issued an automated alert. The Halford Point formation, the one matching my station, had moved. Previous coordinates, 140 kilometers offshore. Current coordinates, 90 kilometers offshore. In 1 hour, it had closed 50 kilometers. Or, it had always been at 90 kilometers. I checked the sealed log. The log says 140. The current reading says 90. It's closer. At 4:35, the lighthouse beam paused for 1.4 seconds. During that pause, I heard the music clearly. It was not distant anymore. It was not faint. It was beautiful. It sounded like a harbor at dawn, like ropes on cleats and water on stone and voices calling across the water, and everything being exactly where it is supposed to be. I did not look. I did not look at the ocean. I kept my eyes on the console, but I could feel it. In the darkness beyond the window, something vast and patient and familiar, something that knew this place, something that was this place, the real version of this place coming home after a very long time away. And some part of me, some part I do not trust, was glad. It is 4:40. I am going to file what may be my final update under this directive, not because I am in danger, not because communication is failing. My systems are operational. My relay is stable. My broadcasts are being received, but I believe the settlement phase is nearing completion. The formations are now according to sealed instrument readings within 60 kilometers of the continental shelf, all 12. Moving at a rate that I cannot verify because every time I check, the previous reading feels incorrect. The figures on the formations number in the thousands. The broadcasts from the formations now outnumber mainland broadcasts on most monitored frequencies. The music is audible without the lighthouse pause. And the lighthouse itself, the real one, the mainland one, is no longer sweeping consistently. Its beam is spending longer and longer in darkness. Each rotation takes a little more time. The intervals are stretching. 8.2, 8.5, 9.0, 9.3. The darkness between sweeps is growing. And in that growing darkness, I can see without looking, without wanting to see light on the horizon. Warm light. The light of a place that has been lit for a very long time. The light of a place that remembers being here. I am going to say one more thing. The continuity office said the formations are originals, that our places are mainland, our villages, our stations, our settlements, approximations built in the absence of the real thing. If that is true, then when the formations arrive, when they finish completing, we will not lose anything. We will simply become correct. The 12 formations will merge with the 12 locations. The originals will settle back into the spaces they left, and everything will be right. Everything will be the way it was always supposed to be. And we will not remember that it was ever different. And there may be new people among us. Corrections. The continuity office called them people who arrive with the return, people who were always supposed to be here, and we will know them. We will have always known them. And these logs, these sealed, time-stamped, digitally verified records will be the only evidence that tonight ever happened. That there was ever a time before the return. That any of us ever existed without it. It is 4:47. The lighthouse has stopped rotating. The beam is fixed, pointing west, out over the ocean. Like it's lighting the way home. The music is very close now. I think I can hear voices in it. People greeting each other. The sound of feet on stone. The sound of a harbor in the early morning. The sound of a place being whole again. I am relay operator Marin Soloway. I am broadcasting from Halford Point Station. I am the observer. The formations are at 30 kilometers. The formations are at 20. The formations are... I don't think they're formations anymore. I think this is just the coast. I think this has always been the coast. I think in a few minutes, I am going to look out the window and see the same harbor I have always seen. And I will not remember why I am sitting at this console at 5 in the morning making a broadcast. And I will go home, and I will see my neighbors. And some of them will be new, and I will have always known them. And none of this will have happened. But the log is sealed. The log will remain. If anyone finds it, if anyone reads it, and wonders why a relay operator spent 6 hours filing reports about something impossible, know this. There was a version before. We were the version before. And the ocean brought back what we were built to replace. I am ending this transmission. Not because I am instructed to. Not because communication has failed. But because the lighthouse beam just came back on. And it is sweeping normally. And the ocean is dark. And everything is quiet. And I cannot remember why I am. Why am I at the console? It's 04:52. I must have fallen asleep during overnight shift. Everything reads normal. All platforms reporting. Standard tidal data. I'm going to close out the shift log and head to the break room. Beautiful morning coming. I can see the harbor from here, all the boats moored up. The lamplights just starting to go out as the dawn wait. We don't have a harbor. Halford Point doesn't have a. Operator Soloway's overnight log has been sealed and transferred to archive. Operator Soloway reported for morning shift at 0800 with no memory of the overnight broadcast. Physical assessment normal. Cognitive assessment normal. Halford Point now has a harbor. It has always had a harbor. The sealed log disagrees. This is the 14th time.